Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, as regular listeners will know, I have spoken with a variety of guests from a company called Mphasis over the years, who are known for applying next-generation technology that helps enterprises transform their businesses globally. And today, I've invited Anup Nair onto the podcast to talk about building a business platform through data modernization. I think it's such a big topic right now, especially as every business is battling with how do they make sense of this huge amount of data that is growing every single day. So today, I want to learn more about tomorrow's business applications, how they're going to be built differently, the roles of things like AI-enhanced business logic and data as a product, and the building of new ecosystems that will have hundreds, if not thousands, of models that are self-learning and ever-growing. We got a lot to get through today, so buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to New York, where Anup is waiting to speak with us now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Neil, thanks for inviting me. I'm the CTO for Mphasis Digital, and my job is to work very closely with our customers in their digital transformation, data transformation journeys. I also head up the architecture practice for Mphasis, enterprise architecture. And this is the role I cherish the most, right? Leading enterprise architecture, primarily because it allows me to, kind of be very close to customers, understand their problems, and kind of get very deep into the situation and resolve them at the end of it. That's significant amount of gratification that I get through that. Neil, I'm based in New York, New Jersey area. I've been working in Mphasis for a very long time now. I mean, this is my second tenure at Mphasis. I joined Mphasis in 2000, July, 2000. And I've been doing, I was here for quite some time, then I changed, then I joined back, couldn't stay away, Yeah. So that's me.
And I'm looking forward to learning more about your work and the tech partners that you've worked with throughout your career and the big businesses. But one of the things I always try and do with a guest when I speak to them for the first time is also find out a little bit more about their origin story. Now, you did tell me a little bit there, but I'm curious, where did your passion for technology come from, and what was it that ultimately put you on the path today? Was there any specific moment that springs to mind?
Actually, not one moment. I mean, I would say few things, right? And see, I'm an electronics engineer at heart, right? I've done my electronics engineering. It was quite some time back though, but I always wanted to open up things, dismantle things, try to break them apart, build them together, etc. Although I didn't understand anything at that point in time. But that was very interesting for me. But I think what really fascinated me was this whole connect between hardware and software, right? It's interesting, right? The fact that you can actually control hardware by writing few lines of code is amazing, right? And it always fascinated me. Right from that time, even when I was doing my engineering, the kind of projects I used to do, for example, I'll tell you one project I was doing was more of controlling an entire electrical power system using assembly language code, right? Yeah. And that was right 97, 96, 97 time frame, when assembly language was still prevalent. I mean, it's still prevalent today. I see a lot of customers still using that. So that was very interesting for me, and that kind of led me into IT, wherein I've done work around multiple things: security, web technologies, data analytics, service-oriented architecture, cloud, etc. And I think that's where I am today. Playing. That's what got me here today. At this stage.
Just listening to your story there, I was getting flashbacks of 95, 96, US robotics, 56K modems, AOL disks and all that. It's amazing to think how far we've come in such a short space of time. I know to many younger listeners, it isn't a short space of time, but I suspect for me and you, it does feel that way, right?
Yeah, and it's been what? I mean, it's been what, 20 years? A significant amount of change happened in the last 20 years. I mean, the whole mobile revolution kind of changed everything, right? So, a lot of part-time work. I do a lot of part-time work, sitting at home, setting up environments and coding and things like that. That's like a kind of a hobby kind of thing. But I mean, I don't know whether I do any more electronics, but I still like to read about it, understand things, etc. Keep myself up to date.
Yeah, it's a great point you made about the mobile revolution there, because really the iPhone was 2007. The App Store didn't hit till 2008. So it's only, 13 years or so that the mobile revolution's been here. And that took a long time to get going. It's an incredible journey we've all been on. And
think about how many companies today have actually banked on that model, right? The whole App Store model. I call it, I mean, it's not me, but it's primarily known as platform business model today. It's a extremely advanced way of doing business, and I'll talk about some of that thing today as we go. I think it's an interesting subject for the topic of discussion today.
Absolutely. And of course, that path that you ended up taking took you to Mphasis. And we have had several guests on from Mphasis throughout the weeks, months, and even years on this podcast. But for anyone tuning in for the first time, hearing about Mphasis for the first time too, can you tell them a little bit about the kind of problems that you're solving for your customers, just to set the scene and get everyone on the same page?
Yeah, sure. I think a little background on Mphasis. I'm sure other people who have been on this have talked about this. But given where our stock price is today, I think I probably warrants another call, another mention of that, right? We are a Blackstone-owned company. And when I say Blackstone-owned, majority stake, Blackstone has majority stake in us. Around 27,000 employees globally, $5.8 billion in market cap. And we provide services to various customers in various industries. Right? We provide IT services, digital transformation services, business transformation services, etc., to industries in banking, capital market, insurance, logistics, healthcare, etc. So that's what we do as a company. Now, if I had to summarize, what we do, for our customers in a few words, really boils down to four things, right? And four things that come to my mind at this point in time. One is achieving agility and resilience, in their systems, in their application, the business overall, right? So I want to roll out a product at speed. I want to go to market at speed. This is a typical example of how we get requirements from our customers. Number two is customer centricity, customer experience, and transformation of customer experience, delivering hyper-personalized experience or omni-channel experience, or things like that. And the third, I guess, pillar I would say is operational excellence. How do I drive in automation in operations? How do I change or improve turnaround time for getting a quote from an insurance provider, things like that. So those are some examples. And the fourth kind of bucket I would categorize as cost takeout, IT cost takeout, operations cost takeout, and similar requirements that come into play. So four categories of how we provide services where we get requirements. And, most of the time, these requirements come because the businesses are actually undergoing transformation, some kind of transformation. Like it could be an IT transformation, or it could be a end-to-end business transformation, a digital transformation. And I guess in more lately, as I had mentioned, when you talked about the Apple Store thing, as I mentioned, people are, most of our customers today are thinking to move into a platform business model because of competition from companies like Amazons of the world. So very very strong effort going towards building platform business models. I mean, talking about platform business model is a completely different topic, and we can have a separate podcast on that. But that's where the requirements come from primarily.
And if we look back, we started our conversation talking about the early internet and the mobile revolution and how that changed mobile devices. Then, of course, much more recently, just about every business has been focused on modernization, digital transformation, and resilience as a result of the global pandemic. And remote working was the big focus of 2020. But now, of course, we're heading towards 2021. But now, of course, here in 2021, it's all about hybrid working. So more modernization, more transformation, more change required. And one of the reasons I invited you on the podcast today was to talk about building a business platform through data modernization. So can you tell me more about how tomorrow's business applications, again, are going to be built differently?
Yeah, I think it's a very good point, right? I mean, building tomorrow's business application. I don't know if it's tomorrow's. I mean, people are already doing this kind of thing I'm going to talk about, right? But let's understand. Let's take a step back and understand why there is a need to build the next generation business platform or business applications. I think, and I always start this thinking from a customer perspective, like a end user consumer aspect of things, right? When you look at today's enterprises, the way they have designed their customer journeys, very transactional, right? So I want to do a wire transfer. If I'm going to a bank on my bank site, I go and do a wire transfer, and that's it. The transaction is over, my journey is over, and that's considered the end, right? Or I want to look at my account summary. I go and check out my account summary, and that's it. The transaction ends. I want to open an account. I go to a branch. Even today, I have to go to a branch in a lot of situations, right? And that's it. The journey is over there. So they're very transactional in nature. Now, but that's probably not going to be acceptable going forward, right? And we are seeing a lot of companies moving out of that model into a completely different model, where journeys are a lot more holistic, right? Which means that if my bank has to know when to offer me a 529 plan, right? My bank has to know when to offer me a mortgage. The bank has to know when to offer me wealth advisory. I would say in order to do that, in order to achieve that kind of holistic, you have to really look at this thing as a holistic journey, right? And like my relationship with the bank is for the entire lifetime. So how do you look at it as a holistic journey? For that, you need to make sure that the banks need to make sure that the journeys are stateful and cognitive, right? Across things, across my transactions. Today, if you see how these organizations are designed, where the org structures are designed or the systems are designed, all are designed based on this model where they're very siloed because of the way they look at customer journeys. All of that needs to change. And that is possible only when you reimagine business applications today. That's possible when you think from a customer perspective before you actually design anything, design org, design processes, design people, structures, etc. That's how I look at the situation, right? I look at next gen business applications kind of solving some of these problems, wherein next gen business applications are going to focus on holistic journeys. They are going to treat data as a product, right? Data is in silos today because of the way orgs are designed, because of the data is captured. They're in silos. They flow through systems, but you're not able to liberate data today in today's situation. So next gen business applications are going to be able to do that. Next gen business applications are also going to use AI to enrich the customer journey or to enrich the process overall. And I also think that the next gen business applications are going to be built by business analysts. They're not going to be built by traditional engineers. And there is no need because of this whole shift into platform business model where you kind of move from building applications and providing a service supplier, being a supplier to a customer, you're kind of moving into a model where you're an orchestrator, wherein you create a platform and let people exchange value on top of it. Very similar to the Uber model or the Amazon model, marketplace model that's there. That's how I think about next gen business applications, and I feel, as I said, right, business analysts are going to be the key drivers for those applications going forward.
I completely agree with you there, especially around the need for change. And I think I'm quite hopeful that we're already seeing that, because the old way of doing things, legacy hardware, applications, and even mindset in corporate cultures are being replaced along with those archaic processes. So as we continue changing there, and a lot of business want to hit the ground running and come back bigger and better than they were before the pandemic, how do you see business analysts and even users beginning to build new models and rolling out business domain products? Because that seems to be the next natural step, right?
Yeah, I mean, once you have a platform that enables you to build applications or build models, why not, right? That becomes the fastest way of going to market. That becomes the fastest way of operating. And you need that kind of a speed. See, you have to understand that, we all have to understand that the persona of a business analyst has changed, right? It is not the same old. I mean, business analysts were and are business experts, of course, right? They are domain experts. They are product experts. They are operations experts as well. But previously, they used to operate with, around fixed workflows, right? Very, very fixed workflows. For example, if I have to do a wire transfer, then, for example, money movement, then everything is defined. There is no change to it, right? The workflows, the processes are defined, which is not acceptable going forward, because you'll get marginalized if you be like that. You have to have the ability to experiment. So business analysts are going to experiment new business models. And in order to do that, there needs to be a platform that supports that experimentation. And that's the key, right? And this platform is not just about technology. It's about enablement of having a community, enablement of an entire ecosystem that needs to be orchestrated. It's about enablement of data, making the data available at the right time, at the right place, in the right form is key to allow business analysts to operate in that fashion. It allows data scientists to create AI models and keep on training and enriching them and taking them to production and run on production. So that's where this is going, right? And business analyst is going to compose applications going forward using technologies that are like no-code technologies. I would have said low-code as well, but low-code is probably a little bit too much for business analysts as it stands today. But no-code technologies, there is a humongous amount of technologies that are coming out in the space around no-code. And I think that's the key. That's how business applications are going to be composed going forward.
So I'm curious, do you see an ecosystem with hundreds, if not thousands, of models that are all self-learning and ever growing? Is that how you see it going?
Yes, absolutely. Right. So now, if you go back to the customer journey example that I talked about, right? Imagine if you have to do a holistic journey where my relationship with an enterprise as a customer is maintained, it's stateful across multiple interactions. Imagine the number of models that needs to be created to support this kind of engagement or deliver the kind of experience that is expected. You will see a lot of micro models and composite models being created and orchestrated through a platform architecture. And that model needs to grow. It will grow. It's going to be self-learning, so it will grow and get better over time. And it will also align to the context better over time, which is the key, right? So it's going to be a massive configuration management exercise and change management exercise that needs to be undertaken by enterprises and maintained on an ongoing basis. Obviously, cloud and similar technologies kind of help make that happen, or will help in the journey. But this is all going. This is the reality.
And if we do have a business leader listening anywhere in the world that's fully bought into what we're talking about here, we've opened their curiosity, but what I'd love to do is light a spark and maybe inspire them. So for those people listening, do you have any use cases that would possibly help the listeners understand what those business platforms will look like in the future, or just give them a bit of food for thought and something to walk away with and get them thinking?
Yeah, I think... absolutely. I think when we talk about a business example, it'll make it more real. And in fact, I don't even want to call this like a tomorrow's platform, right? Because we're already doing this for our customers. And I'll talk about a case, an example that we are actually implementing now, right? And this is in the healthcare side of the world, where there is this large healthcare equipment manufacturing and distribution company. And it's global, and and basically it's a company that manufactures healthcare equipment, right? So if a hospital wants to put an order for a certain kind of healthcare equipments and stuff like that, or it could be hospitals, or it could be brokers, or it could be customers, individual customers. When they put an order, there is no way that this company is able to tell the lead time for the order fulfillment, right? Today, that's the situation. They're not able to do it. And you know what the reason is? The reason is today's situation. It's going to probably look stupid, right? There is no visibility into inventory. There is no visibility into suppliers. There is no visibility into geographically distributed transportation logistics vendors. There's nothing there at real time. So they have no choice other than just saying it's going to take 4 weeks or 2 to 4 weeks. Now, this is not acceptable in today's world, right? In the world where I can put an order, at least pre-COVID, I could put an order and get the same day, right? So that's how I'm thinking about it, right? So this example, I kind of helps understand the problem statement that many of the large traditional enterprises are dealing with. Right? It's easy to, build the next generation platform for an internet-based company, right? Which is born in the cloud era. But traditional enterprises are going through this struggle because of significant amount of legacy, right? So what we are doing for them is to create this next generation business platform where you get a live feed of demand and supply. Any point in time, you'll have a live feed of data which shows the demand, supply, the logistics, the transportation, the raw materials, the inventory, live feed of all of that. Now, when you have a live feed of data, you are in a position to write models or applications that can get more real-time information to the customer. And these can be churned out at speed. But the primary thing is it's not easy to build a live feed as I'm talking about, because, organizations are in silos. Data is in silos. That data needs to be liberated. And when you get that data out, it needs to be cleaned. It needs to be understood well. Ownerships need to be set up, etc. And made it available to create the experience that needs to be delivered. This is an example. This is a typical example of how we are bringing in automation, how we are bringing in, how we are liberating data, how we are using data to create models to provide better customer experience. I don't know if that was. I can go into more details of this if needed, but that's a summary of an example.
Yeah, so many great points you made there, especially around, I think so many business leaders have been burnt by expensive IT projects that overrun and go over budget and often take 18 months just to get delivered and then iron out all the problems. But that's no good in today's world. You need something out there the same year, because a year, 2 years in business now is almost a lifetime. So where do organizations begin to orchestrate such an ecosystem and increase that speed and get it out there?
This is probably the most difficult question, right? Because it definitely depends on the situation the organization is, the level of maturity, and the IT landscape, the business landscape, the people, everything. There are multiple angles to this thing, right?
Sure.
And I would really there is obviously we need to engage more deeper with the enterprise to really understand the situation. But I can give a broad view of how we typically approach it, right? I think the first and the foremost thing after the vision is set up, right? The thinking that there is a vision set up and there is a mindset change to probably become a platform business model. Mindset change at an executive level, at a C level, is not enough. It needs to go all the way into the roots of the enterprise. So once the vision is set up, I would say start by understanding business capabilities, right? What are the business capabilities what are core capabilities? What are non-core capabilities? Neil, you won't imagine the number of enterprises I talk to where this basic step is not done yet.
Yeah.
Can you decompose an enterprise into a collection of business capabilities? People have some form or the other. People are doing some things, right? But they're not really how you would want things to happen. So, number one, business capabilities. Number two is liberate data. Think about liberating data. Now, this is a mammoth of a task. Obviously, you can't do all of it together, right? That's exactly where Mphasis, what we do is we bring a framework, or we have a thinking called front to back, right? And I don't know if somebody in previous podcast would have talked about this, but front to back is our trademarked way of doing transformation. How do you systematically do liberation of data in chunks is what we try to do. So liberate data in chunks. Number three is consider datanomics right at the beginning of the journey. When I say datanomics, I don't actually mean monetization of data in the traditional form. You sell data, right? That's probably one part of it. But the bigger part of it is how do you get maximum value out of data as it stands today? And that's the key. So you have to consider that right at the beginning. Number four is have a reference architecture. This is key, right? Because there are many industry specific reference architectures out there, but how do you stitch the dots? There is a specific way of doing things. Reference architecture is key. Do not miss this step, right? And number five is change management, probably one of the most important element in this entire thing. You won't believe how many enterprises have created models and they are not in production, right? And the reason is because there is lack of adoption across the enterprise. Adoption is key. How do you enable adoption? By doing many various activities. For example, Mphasis, what we do is we set up a data dojo. Dojo is about training, about enablement, about helping out in proof of concepts, etc. So change management is probably one of the most important elements. So these are the few things that I would recommend any enterprise to start focusing on, at least these five things, right? There are many other angles to this. And believe me, these are not easy because you will face a significant amount of challenges when you do this thing, right? From dealing with legacy, dealing with data lineage, dealing with silos of data, dealing with technical debt. And then at some point in time you also need to change tires in a moving bus, right? Because you got to maintain the old, you got to maintain the new, and start connecting the dots. Data ownership, data sovereignty, all of these angles come into play when you actually go about doing this kind of a transformation. So that's what I would typically recommend.
So I'm curious, if we look a little bit further into the future, what role do you hope that Mphasis will play in that future, and how you guys are going to help increase adoption, be that bridge, and help guide organizations through this transitional period?
So in many ways, and again, this depends on the level of maturity and the stage at which they are, right? We can today, even today we do this, right? But I think this is going to accelerate like crazy going forward. I think setting the vision, helping everybody adopt the vision. The first thing you need to do is to let people buy into the vision, right? That's very important, and that's change management an aspect of it. We have domain experts that we will bring to the table who are very well equipped and understand the space pretty well, and they are able to help set the vision. Second area, I guess we think will be very pivotal. Emphasis will be pivotal in making that happen is actually implementing the platform. Right? How do you go about implementing such a data platform, the next generation business platform? And right from data modernization, moving into cloud, enabling, establishing data pipelines, all the controls around data pipelines, and enabling people to create models, and actually also helping create the models. So we do that entire gamut of things. I think we are very well equipped to do that. We as a company, we operate as tribes and squads. One of the tribe we have is called Platform Tribe, which actually does exactly this. And the third thing is driving more adoption. And this is key because, as I said, right, the people, there are different kinds of what we call corporate antibodies, which is a separate problem altogether, who stop adoption. But then there are some people who really want to adopt, but they don't know how to go about doing it, how to handle it. So there is a hand-holding aspect of it. This is where I talked about having a data dojo, establish a data dojo, and take the customers through the journey of the dojo to really enable them to operate in this fashion. That's how I think we as a company are positioned very well to help our customers and any enterprise for that matter.
And that sounds like my kind of dojo right there. And without breaking a sweat too. But we did start today talking about your origin story, the journey you've been on, but now I'd like to have a little bit of fun with you and talk about, is there a particular song or piece of music that has been the soundtrack to your career in technology, or a song that has inspired you? And just to set the scene here, I ask this question to every guest, and then we put each song and the story behind it into a Spotify playlist so people can listen and learn from the inspiration of what's inspired those tech leaders. So what would yours be?
So I'm going to give you a Hindi song, if that's okay.
Nice. Yes, of course.
I don't think you have it in your podcast. I looked at your list of songs that you have. It's a song that came out in 2010, and which is why it is very important for me. It's sung by a Sufi singer called Rahat Fateh Ali Khan.
Yeah.
And it's from an album called Anjana Anjani. And I think it goes as Aas Paas Hai Khuda. Okay.
Yeah.
And what it really, why is it important? I'll tell you why it's important, right? Because it's very meaningful. Number one, 2010 was when my son was born, so I'm very closely connected. It was exactly that time. It was all over my years when he was born at that time. So that was one reason why it's important. But then the message in that, the lyrics in that gives a lot of peace of mind, right? It basically goes saying that if you don't. If your destination is hazy, if you're confused, you close your eyes, bow your head, and you'll find God. Right? Yeah. It's so powerful. Basically, it has multiple meanings. It actually tells you that when you bow your head down, that's when you actually find things.
Yeah.
That's when you learn things. And God is about learning. God is about doing the right thing. So that's why it's very important. I hear this like all the time, right? It's like when I go to a meeting, before I go to a meeting, or do some big engagement, or even when I'm actually just resting. This is playing a lot. I don't know if it's there in Spotify though, but it's something that's very personal to me.
Well, I will find it and I will add it to the playlist. I love the song choice. Looking forward to checking it out for myself. But more than anything, one of the reasons I asked that question is the story behind it. It's so powerful and what it means to you. Mm-hmm. So I will get that on there. But before I do let you go, for anyone listening who wants to find out more about Mphasis or contact your team, if they've got any questions, what's the best starting point?
So I would say two places where you can find us very well. One is obviously LinkedIn. I mean, send me a direct message on LinkedIn or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very good at accepting invitations. I think that's probably where you can directly reach me. And I will obviously take care of getting the right person involved to help out. The other place is actually, if you go to mphasis.com, there is this contact us, right? When you do contact us, there are like 29 check boxes that you could check on what help you need. Any checkbox you check, you will reach my team. And eventually, it'll obviously, most of it, I have access to most of the requirements that comes from that. And these are the two places where you can reach out to me or my team. Or when I say my team, there are a whole lot of tribes in Mphasis. Like I talked about Data Tribe or Modernization Tribe or Platform Tribe. They're all coming into the pipeline. All requirements come through that. That's how I think that's the best way to connect, I would say.
Well, I feel like we've been on an entire journey together today. We started in the 90s and the early beginnings of the internet and your career, and right up to present day and tomorrow's business applications, how they're going to be built differently, AI-enhanced business logic, data as a product, etc. But for me, what brought the whole thing to life was you and your story, and that's why I record this podcast every day. So more than anything, just thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for having me. It was fun.
I think that every business is on a journey right now, aren't they? And essentially navigating through uncharted digital waters. And I cannot thank today's guest enough for coming on here and being able to almost build a bridge that allows business leaders to see what that new world is going to look like and help businesses see the options that they have when building new ecosystems and apps of tomorrow. I think we hear words like digital transformation, but it's what is it? How do I do it? Where we're heading to? And for me, Anup really brought to life those questions today. And just although it's an audio podcast, I think he really helped. He certainly helped me visualize what that future looked like when he was building that vision. But I'd love to hear more about you and how your business are managing this journey through those uncharted digital waters, and learn from your stories too. So this is your call to action. Email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. If you go to techblogwriter.co.uk, you'll find over 1,600 interviews. And you can also get me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all the usual places. Just look for me at Neil C. Hughes. And I would also appreciate it wherever you listen to this podcast, in particular Apple Podcast listeners. I think that's one of the few that do let you rate and review a show. In that constant battle against the dreaded algorithms, I'd really appreciate if you could give us a helping hand by leaving a rating and review. But other than that, I'll return again tomorrow. I've got another guest lined up already for you. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.